The Nothing, the 13th Korn album in their 25-year career. When this album had been announced, we all knew it was going to be something very special, personal, dark, and atmospheric because it is the first album to be released after the saddening passing of Devin Davis, the late wife of singer-songwriter Jonathan Davis, who lost her life to an unfortunate drug abuse problem. So, this album is the third album to feature Brian Welch again, and I have to say they knocked it out of the park with this. They haven't had an album be this atmospheric probably since, I don't know, Untouchables. It's probably the best since Untouchables. They didn't overdo it with the experimenting. Actually, they really haven't since they've gotten their founding member and leading guitarist Brian Welch back. He's been back for the past 3 albums now, including The Nothing. And when he came back, they kind of started getting their shit together again. And I don't want to say it was solely because of him. I don't believe that this, he came back and he just started pointing fingers and being in charge. But I do think he helped the creative writing process because the 4 albums made while he was gone, is, there's something special. And I think there's something to love on every single Korn album. Every single Korn album, there's a little bit of something to like. And when he came back, I think they just ironically at the same time started wanting to get their shit together. And not that they ever lost it, but anyone that knows and loves Korn knows what I mean. They were ready to get back to formation. But I'll talk about those other albums on another video at another time. This album is definitely, I love it right there with Paradigm Shift. Serenity is probably my least favorite of these 3 albums that they made since Brian's return. But this album is, I can't believe how well it came out. I loved it. I was a little disappointed at first because, not disappointed in a bad way, but because I thought it would sound different, but the sound I got was something I loved. And it's incredible. The album already starts off with you feeling like in 10 years, you're going to look back and be like, yeah, that was a classic. Or, 15, 20 years. You'll look back. If you're a Korn fan in another 15 or 20 years, you'll be like, that album was a classic album. Classic Korn album. It already starts off with something that makes it feel classic, which are bagpipes. The opening intro song, The End Begins, gives these very smooth-sounding bagpipes and Jonathan Davis chanting, "Why did you leave? Why did you leave me?" And I heard that this song is about his mother and his wife because his mother had passed away just about 2 months before he also ended up losing his wife. And the song's dedicated to both of them. And it's one of their better intro songs. It's way better than Uber Time or Intro from Untitled. But it goes right up there with Dead from Falling Away From Me. It's an intro to the album, but also being its own self-containing song. And it's kind of getting you ready for what's coming. It's here's what you're about to go through. Here's my story of what happened. The next 2 songs are the first 2 singles off the album. Track 2 being Cold, which is one of the craziest songs they've put out in a long time. Maybe one of their best songs they've ever put out, period. Very fast-paced, very aggressive, very in-your-face. Jonathan Davis got this very aggressive vocal style he carries through the entire song. And just before the actual chorus of the song, there's this little pre-chorus of him grunting the word cold and going through this entire pre-chorus of these very, very well done growls that he's been perfecting, I want to say, ever since Untitled. And I know he had done some screaming and growling on Take a Look in the Mirror, but ever since the song Killing, track 11 from album number 8, Untitled, the very end of that song has a death metal inspired ending because he was listening to a lot of Cannibal Corpse at the time. And I think ever since then is when he's been trying to perfect this. And I gotta say, his vocals in general sound better than they ever have. He's just been getting better and better. I think the only album where I wasn't a big fan of his vocals, period, out of any album, was Path of Totality. I felt he gave a very weak performance there, but aside from that, because I'm gonna make a video about that album some other time, or I may just make a video of my least favorite Korn albums for any Korn fans out there that may be wondering. But the vocals on Cold are just beautiful. It is a beautiful, fast-paced, aggressive song, and I suggest even someone who's just like, I don't really listen to Korn anymore, I don't hate them, go listen to the song. I think you'll get a kick out of it. You'll Never Find Me, track 3, the very first single for the album. We don't have to talk about much. It's a basic Korn sound, kind of like Rotting in Vain. And, I don't know, it's just got their basic sound, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but it sounds like after they were done writing it, they found the most easiest song to rap, people could wrap their head around, and it would be a radio single, and it was that one. It's still really good. It's got a very catchy guitar tunes in the beginning. It's got some really nice vocals from John on the verses. I like the way he sings in the verses. And it's got a pretty neat music video. They have a history, even though they haven't all been great, they have a history of sci-fi music videos, and I love it anytime they do it because, one of my favorite bands, I love sci-fi, so it's cool to see them intertwine the two. And then there are some songs on here that I feel like could have been better singles. For instance, Darkness is Revealing, which is track 4, I feel is a better choice for a first single than You'll Never Find Me, but maybe they wanted to get that song out of the way because I'm going to say it's one of the weaker songs on the album, but still good. But Darkness is Revealing sounds like a return to form from Korn while sounding fresh, but also still being them. And the song is something people can relate to. You have something tragic happen in your life, and it's a song about where do you go from here? What's the next step? How do you move on? And these are the lyrical contents of this song. And so I can relate to it a little bit due to a very terrible tragedy in my family that happened just a few short years ago. And it's one of those things. Sorry if you hear that car in the background. We got, someone who's got a big wiener and he's trying to show it while I'm trying to record this. Anyways, I feel like everyone's gone through that a little bit. So it's something I was able to attach to very quickly. And the whole end of the song is very nice. It just ends on this very emotional, upsetting, where do I go from here chant that just carries out the rest of the song. It doesn't end on a chorus thing like some other song structures normally do. So it's got a very special sound, and I think it would have been great as a new Korn song that Korn fans would love and be easy to wrap around for the casual radio listener, like on Sirius fucking Octane or something. The other one I think should have been picked for a single, and I hope it actually gets picked for a single in the future, is Gravity of Discomfort. I think it's like track 10 on the album. I'm not sure, I don't remember. But this song is a fucking monster. It sounds like it was made to be played live and made to start mosh pits. Kind of like Let the Guilt Go or Here to Stay. It's just a big hauling monster that just rolls right up in your face and makes you want to pump your fist and jump up and down and shove some people down. It's such a great song. And it's definitely, it's got to be like Korn. Please pick this as your next single. It's got all the makings. It doesn't, and for people who are like, I like a good rock song, but I don't want all that screaming and growling bullshit. It doesn't even have any of that. It's got a catchy as fuck chorus, probably the catchiest chorus on the entire album. So you can just chant and sing along with it. The breakdown is very booming and makes you want to jump up and down and everything. It makes you want to get moving. Makes you want to burn off some energy. Great song. I think it should be the pick for the next single. Some of my favorites on this album, I gotta say, are Finally Free, which is pretty much the sad ballad of the album. It's another one that people can relate to. A lot of stuff is relatable on here, and so I think it'll hit a lot of people in the hearts. But in it, he talks about how his wife is finally free and set free from this pain, and how could he fail her like this? And you may not relate to that part, but I feel for him on that, and it makes it a very, very touching song. It's a beautiful song. The way he sings the verses, the way he sings the pre-chorus, it's all very different and beautiful for a Korn song. Like, it's just something powerful, and I'm glad it's right there about how it's the beginning of the last half of the album. And it's a good little transition due to how heavy and in your face the first couple songs are. But it's really something special, and I hope it touches everybody. Idiosyncrasy, which is the last full song on the first half of the album, has the sickest fucking opening guitar riff on this whole mother. It is insane. It sounds like something from Pantera, sort of, and then I found out it was Pantera inspired. It sounds like something clever off of like Far Beyond Driven, like they were listening to a bunch of Far Beyond Driven, and I'm pretty sure John Davis told them, if what I read was correct, he told them to maybe throw out something Pantera inspired. And they did. It's a really sludgy, nasty, dirty opening that's just right there in your face, makes you want to just fucking bang your head and blare it in your fucking car. And it goes into, I think this is one of the songs where some of the lyrics, he's getting at a little bit of aggression towards his wife, kind of a, how could you do this type thing, but he's not like insulting her, calling her a bitch or anything. But it's another one. In the chorus, he's singing, "You chose to walk a thin line and chose to replace your hurt instead of healing mine." Kind of sounded like she was only thinking about herself and she chose this path, but at the same time acknowledging that maybe she couldn't help it. The chorus has a very groovy disco beat to it. Kind of reminds me of Got the Life. And the breakdown for the song is one of the most insane on here. It's crazy. It's emotional. It's how John Davis feels, like his entire life is the butt of someone's joke, the butt of God's joke, really. You'll see what I mean if you listen to it. And it's just a killer fucking track beginning to end. Like, another one that non-Korn fans, I think, could really fucking enjoy. And lastly, probably my favorite track on the entire goddamn thing is This Loss. This is one of the best songs they've ever written their entire career. Not the best in the past couple years. Not the heaviest in the past couple years. It is one of the most mature songs they've written in a long time. Most mature. The verses are probably the weakest part of the song, but the haunting, gothic sounding chorus that just smoothly just goes right into your ears on this song just hits you with every bit of emotion that John Davis is going through ever since this terrible thing happened to him. All these terrible things that keep happening to him. But, and his performance on this album is definitely probably the best on the whole thing. Some might disagree, but any Korn fan out there can say This Loss is truly amazing. I wasn't a big fan of Remember Who You Are, but I love the song Holding All These Lies. It kind of reminds me of that in the sense of how it feels. Not really how it sounds, but it's like I've listened to the song on repeat like 17 times, and it's got the most unique breakdown I've heard from them in a long time. Jazz-inspired breakdown. John truly showing off his non-aggressive side to his vocals. It kind of sounds like he's on open mic night, smoking a cigarette, just talking about how shitty, singing out how shitty he feels. And it is just, man. As a whole, this is the best written song on the album. Writing-wise, it is the best song on the album. And then it ends with him chanting, "I want to take it back, I want to take it back." And what I'm getting out of this is just all the things he keeps losing in his life. He just wants to give it all back. He wants to be given it back. He wants to grab it and take it back. And it's just a perfect song. It is a perfect Korn song. Please go listen to this track. And then another song that isn't one of my favorites, but it's not one of my least favorites. I do love it. It's a song called Harder. It's the one with the funny text on it. Made people thought it was going to be some corny ass, no pun intended, edgy song because of the way it's written. I don't know why they chose it. I don't know if it was a company decision or if one of the other guys thought it would be cool. Maybe fucking Fieldy or something, but I don't know. It is the most untouchable sounding song on here. It sounds like it could have been a B-side to Untouchables that they remade today. It's big open chorus. It has a very huge chorus, very loud. And it sounds like it could have, because of the chorus, it could have went in with the rest of the songs alongside everything in Untouchables. Shit, I would rather take out something like fucking Wake Up Hate and put this song in there instead. But it's another relatable one. I think that's why I liked it so much, because everyone has that moment, those few moments in your life where you just got to keep getting through some tough shit before the good shit gets to you. And right now, I mean, I'm moving on to better things, but the past year I've had it rough. I've had shitty thing after shitty thing happen to me. I won't go into it too much, but I keep getting hit over the head with bad news every single fucking week. And this is what the contents of this song is why does my life just keep getting harder and harder and harder? Now, I'm not saying my entire life. Like, John Davis's entire life is way worse than mine. It's good, but at a price. And it's just something another one I was able to attach myself to. kind of like The Darkness is Revealing, and that's why it stuck with me. It's got these cool robotic sounding verses from John, very fun, kind of almost, you can almost dance to the verses, and then the powerful chorus. And screaming wise, not low growls, but screaming wise, definitely the best on here. Definitely his best screams for what he can do in John Davis screaming. These are the best. So great song. The only thing I don't like about it, which is why it's probably not in my favorites list, is just before the breakdown and during the outro of the song, he keeps running this little thing where he's like harder and 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 harder, and it just goes on way too long. It loops over like 7 times before the breakdown. It could have done it in like 2, or maybe not even at all, and something else could have been put there. It's a little annoying to get through, but the rest of the song is fucking great. I think that's the only thing holding it back from being on my favorites. The weaker songs on the album are definitely some things I could have dealt without on this album. There's not many, but dead center in the middle of the album, the interlude to transition from the first half into the second half, Seduction of Indulgence, it's a little too silly. I don't know, it just has a weird placement, and it doesn't transition you from Idiosyncrasy into Finally Free, a very heavy in-your-face song, into a very sad ballad song, and it just doesn't transition it well. I mean, it sounds like a fun song you can play at like a creepy Halloween party or haunted house or something, because it's got some creepy-ass lyrics in it, like haunting me, raping me, killing me, stabbing me, and I'm sure it's about how he's feeling about how fate treats him, but I could have done without it. And then, I'm sorry to say, and a couple people out there are going to kill me for this, but the most obnoxious song on this album, The Ringmaster. Now, in retrospect, the name sounded cool, so I guess I expected too much. But this song just kind of, I mean, I've gotten used to it. It is not the worst Korn song I've ever heard. But it is by no far the best, like, at all. It's obnoxious. The verses are kind of neat and different, but this could have been a B-side or just probably never seen the light of day, and no one would have cared. It's just weird that this whole album has this emotional message to it, and then all of a sudden there's this song where in the verses he's like, you boy, yes, I'm talking to you kid, and I'm just gonna sing like this through all the verses. And see how annoying that was? That's how annoying the song is, or how annoying it gets. And then it goes from the most fast-paced verses and most obnoxious verses into the slowest chorus on the album. And not that that's bad, but the goddamn chorus doesn't match what he's saying in the rest of the song. At least not for me. I'm not getting it. I'm not getting this, see you there, all up in my face, and the shadows are there warming me with its embrace. And like, the verses sound kind of good, but it sounds like they go to a different song. I could do without the megaphone sound at the beginning of the breakdown, where he's like, you ever hear that voice in your motherfucking head? And it's such a weird song to put on this album. It doesn't match the flow at all. And if this was a more lighthearted album and more like has its up and downs and has all different kinds of songs on it, like Paradigm Shift or Follow the Leader, where there's just a slew of different kinds of songs on it, that'd be one thing, but it's not. This album has one coherent sound, one feeling, one atmosphere, and then it just breaks the second this song comes up. It does not match the rest of the album, and I don't want a very fun Korn song in the middle of this depressing message he's giving to his late wife. The only thing I can say about it is the verse, or the breakdown, is kind of cool. I like the bouncy guitars. It sounds like another good live section that could be played live, and maybe it would sound better live or something. But a lot of people like the song, including 2 people I personally know, love it to death and don't see why I have a problem with it. Again, not the worst, but not by any means the best. I wish it wasn't on the album. Lastly, out of songs I didn't care for, is the third single, Can You Hear Me? And I don't hate this song, but I don't love it. It sounds good, it feels good, and it sounds nice, I think, which is why it's okay with me. Comes off of, we get Finally Free, and then it goes into this other softer song, and I think that's why it's got a good place on the album, so that's why I like it. But it's a John Davis song rewritten to be a Korn song, and it all sounds great, but it's all just the chorus over and over again. I like the way he sings in it and everything, but just something about the song it's a little on the boring side. And I know that it's not part of the, I mean, maybe he felt these words later on, but it was written years. Like, you can find when he first performed the song like 4 years ago on YouTube. So it's not like part of the story on this album, but maybe it fit and that's why he chose to use it. Not the worst song by any means. It's a good song, just it's on the boring side. So to wrap this up, the album ends on an outro song called Surrender to Failure. And it isn't much of a song as it is a goodbye to his wife. Like, he's sharing with his fans his final goodbye to his wife. And it has some of the most heartbreaking things you could hear on an album as personal as this. Some of the lyrics, for every good thing I've done, there's a price to pay, and that price has left me horrified. God knew all along he was going to take you. And it's almost like he knew it was coming. He knew what was going to happen. And now he's left heartbroken because it happened. And the ending of the song, the ending of the entire album ends on him softly singing, I failed. Not a big crying fit like people were expecting it to be. Just him saying, I failed, I failed. And this outro is the most perfect way. The opening intro tells you what's coming. The outro is a legitimate goodbye. And it almost has he just got done touring for his Black Labyrinth album. And that album was inspired by the sounds of Queen of the Damned, which is why he made it 10 years ago. But this song sounds like, maybe since he just got out of that mindset of that Black Labyrinth tour, it sounds like it could have went on that album, or even the Queen of the Damned soundtrack. It has that kind of vibe and slow sound to it. It's just him singing over Ray's haunting, taboo-sounding drums and a very soft, melancholy keyboard playing. And that's all it is. There's no verses, no choruses. It's just him saying goodbye to his wife with some beautiful music going on in the background. It's the most perfect way to end this album, and I kind of feel like they should take a break after this album for a while, let John Davis clear his head, and just come back stronger than ever. This was very clearly an emotionally draining experience for him, but I'm very happy as a Korn fan he gave it to us. I'm glad they made this monster. The best parts of the album are definitely John and their drummer Ray Luzier. And, I mean, everyone else did great. James and Brian shine on several songs, but I feel like guitar-wise, the last album is where they were put at the front, whereas this time, Ray and John are. And Fieldy, he's good. He's giving it his all. He's trying his little heart out. I will say that Gravity of Discomfort song, part of the reason it's such a fist-pumping monster is because of Fieldy's bass. So he stands out very well on that song. You'll see what I mean if you listen to it. But altogether, they all did a great job. And it's definitely going down in history as one of Korn's best albums. Like, I couldn't be any happier to have this album. And some people are going to hear it and be like, just hear Korn and all that. But if you're not a Korn fan, like a serious one, maybe you won't care for it. Or if you're a casual one, maybe you'll still like it. I don't know. But I know several people every year will come out and be like, just sounds like Korn, just sounds like Korn, just sounds like Korn. But then they go home and like blare fucking Godsmack and Disturbed. I literally know people like this. And I feel like even though I can see where people just don't think Korn's their type of thing anymore, I can see where people can still enjoy them to this day, especially with this album with very adult themes of what could go on. And I kind of feel like it's a sequel to Serenity of Suffering, or a continuation. That album, I really feel, was him explaining what was going on in his life with his wife. Very toxic relationship, even with starting off with Rotting in Vain. And then this album is about the aftermath of it. So I think they go together real well, even though they have completely different sounds. So the album, I'm going to give a 5 out of 5. There wasn't that many dislikes on the album. I loved it. I hope you love it. Let me know if you hated it down, or if you think I described a song wrong, or if you hate me because I do not like Ringmaster. Just let me know down in the comments, and I hope some people... I'm going to post this one on Facebook probably, get it around more because I'm feeling good about it, and I hope I can impress people even a little bit with what I'm saying about this. So, to all Korn fans, go listen to this album. You'll fucking love it. To people who are curious, Go listen to it. Maybe you'll like it. And if you're just over Korn, stay away from it because fuck you. So with that being it, goodbye, and I hope to see you again.